It's June 12th, 1999, and this is the 124th Commencement from the University of Washington in Seattle. From UWTV, welcome to another broadcast of our graduation ceremonies, coming to you from Husky Stadium. I'm Jim Stutzman.
And I'm Pam Stewart. The processional, as it is officially known, is about to begin. The term is a little stuffy for an event that is anything but stuffy, as you will surely see. Doctoral students will be the first to enter the stadium, to be followed by those receiving master's degrees today, and then those who've wrapped up their undergraduate studies.
And this is the largest graduating class at the university, due in part at least to increasing enrollments at both the Tacoma and Bothell campuses. We hope to be able to show you some videotaped moments from UW-Tacoma's commencement ceremonies. They were held yesterday at the Tacoma Dome. UW-Bothell commencement takes place tomorrow.
And a special welcome to you who are watching these ceremonies in Wenatchee on UWTV Channel 18, in Spokane on UWTV Channel 16, and on Channel 27 UWTV right here in Seattle. This telecast will be rebroadcast on these same stations over the next week at 2:30 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday, to give family and friends who've missed our live broadcast a chance to see this wonderful event. Again, that's Monday through Friday, starting this coming Monday at 2:30 in the afternoon.
And of course, you're welcome to record this broadcast. Many people do that just to have a record of their offspring or their friend's graduation. It makes for a memorable keepsake. If you don't have recording equipment but would like a video copy of these ceremonies, note that they will be available again this year at the University Bookstore. The cost is $29.95.
And this is the second year that we've held graduation in Husky Stadium. Always a chancy thing to do given the uncertain nature of our northwest weather. But if you look out there today, I don't think we could improve upon this very much. We've got a few high clouds, sunshine, a little bit warm, but couldn't ask for a better day.
And Mount Rainier is standing tall.
Sure is.
We have lucked out again. Most of the students, whom will soon be coming into the stadium, began their study 4 or more years ago. Their classroom experiences will stay with them for the rest of their lives, but as you well know, there is a lot more to the university experience than classes, research, writing papers, exams, and all. And we'll be showing you some of these other aspects throughout our broadcast today.
Today's graduates, spectators, and our TV audience, for that matter, are the first to see a big part of this event on a big screen. There it is. If you look closely at the scoreboard, you'll see there are 2 screens there, the small one in the front, big one in the back. The one in operation today is not the one that will be used during Husky football games later this fall, just today.
The Husky-tron, as it's officially known. And it's big. It measures 23 by 42 feet. It is the largest video board in college football, and it had its debut last year in the Husky Brigham Young game, which the University of Washington won, incidentally, 20-10. And it's going to get double duty next year and in 2001 when the Seahawks will be using this stadium while their new home in downtown Seattle is under construction.
You know, the commencement crew spends weeks setting the stage for this event, and as you can see, they do a remarkable job. When graduation was held next door at Heck Edmondson Pavilion, most observers used to say that the pavilion never looked as good as it did on commencement day.
And that was true. The flowers and the greenery do nice things for the stadium, too. It makes for a pleasant spot to lunch, which a number of our guests are doing today. If you were sitting in the stands with today's guests, you'd hear a lot of people talking about this place. Usually it's the white and gold flowers. They get most of the oohs and the ahs. They are mums, incidentally. Ordered from California in early February. They arrive in the Northwest on the Monday before graduation, and they are pampered and watered extensively to assure that they're in full bloom when this ceremony begins.
So you're telling me there are full-time attendants that take care of the flowers?
There are a bunch, about a half a dozen, actually.
That's right. Well, we do know it takes a crew of 6. A whole day, one full day to arrange them. Understandable when you consider there are 1,200 pots involved here. And after the ceremonies, these flowers will be distributed to area hospitals, another nice touch associated with graduation. Now, a quick overview of some of today's scheduled events. Marshal Ron Moore will officially open the ceremony once everybody files inside. We'll hear the national anthem. The university regents, we'll meet them, and we will see a number of awards presented today.
Those awards include distinguished teachers, public service, and the presidential medalist. Finally, the alumnus summa laude dignatus will be singled out. You Latin students know what that's all about. This year, the recipient is Jim Ellis, who has long been involved with some of the most far-reaching public service projects the Puget Sound area has ever seen. That is a quote, incidentally, from an article on him in the current edition of Columns, the UW Alumni Magazine.
You'll also hear from the Vice President of the Associated Students of the university. And then President McCormick will introduce today's commencement speaker, a pioneer in the American Civil Rights Movement, Julian Bond.
As you probably know, Bond is the chairman of the board of the NAACP. He has been called an academic with an attitude that is widely admired. He is no stranger to these events either. 20 years ago, he was the commencement speaker at State University College in New Paltz, New York. One of the producers of today's broadcast was in that graduating class, and today her stepdaughter is in this graduating class.
The official commencement procession has just begun. A lot of colorful outfits beginning to enter the stadium. As we mentioned earlier, yesterday afternoon, UW-Tacoma held its commencement exercises, and we have some edited video to show you of that event.
Tacoma celebrated its 2000th graduate during these ceremonies. This is the second year that UWT's commencement was held at the Tacoma Dome. And as you can see, this ceremony, like the one here in Seattle today, attracted a lot of family and friends.
As eager to put school behind them as are their Seattle counterparts today, the commencement speaker was a well-known Tacoma native, Audrey Edwards. Edwards graduated from the UW in 1969 and began her career at the Tacoma News Tribune.
Edwards is a senior editor of More magazine and editor-at-large of Essence magazine and co-author of the groundbreaking book, Children of the Dream, The Psychology of Black Success. You're about to hear a portion of her remarks.
Welcome to the 9th commencement ceremonies of the University of Washington, Tacoma.
I can't tell you how thrilled and also a little terrified I was to get a call from John Enstrom a couple of months ago asking me to be this year's commencement speaker. It's a great honor to be invited back to the city that I was born in, the city that nurtured me, to speak at the institution of higher learning that gave me my formal, credentialed education. And what I'd like to share with you now are a few of those principles that I gleaned from a book I did 10 years ago called Children of the Dream, The Psychology of Black Success. I co-authored the book with Dr. Craig Polite, a black psychologist, and we went across country interviewing people of our generation, the baby boom generation, African Americans, who had benefited from the civil rights movement, had benefited from integration, had more opportunities presented to them than any other group. And we wanted to look at and isolate those particular qualities and attributes that go into making a successful person. And what we came up with, not surprisingly, are qualities and attributes that apply to anyone, not just African Americans. And I'd like to share a few of those with you now. We found that first and foremost, successful people always take personal responsibility. And that simply means they do not give in to victim thinking. They don't take the attitude, I can't do, I can't achieve because I'm a woman, because I'm an African American, because I'm short, because I'm old. They realize there may be obstacles, there may be hurdles to overcome, but they operate out of a personal sense of power and the recognition that if they want something, they have the ability to go after it and get it. Another important trait is being able to manage others' perceptions of you. Depending on who you are or where you are, you may encounter people who have stereotypical notions about who you are, prejudicial notions about who you are, and successful people manage to turn those perceptions around. And if they don't change the perception that someone has of their group, they at least change the perception that person has of them. And these are people who are very often as adept in their social skills as they are in any academic or intellectual skills. Another important quality is the ability to be a pioneer. And that simply means to go where someone has not gone before. Every generation will have opportunities and challenges. And every generation can either rise to those opportunities, meet the challenges, or squander them. And for you, the 1999 graduating class that is closing out a century and ushering in the next 1,000 years, much has been given, which means much is also required. Your presence here today is proof that you're up to the task. Congratulations. Good luck. And as my generation and the current generation would say, peace and love. Thank you.
The comments of Audrey Edwards, yesterday's commencement speaker at UW-Tacoma. The Tacoma campus opened to 176 students in the fall of 1991. 5 students participated in the graduation ceremony the following spring. Today, 1,300 students are enrolled at UW-Tacoma, and yesterday's graduating class totaled over 450.
Growing by leaps and bounds. We are back now live with the University of Washington Seattle commencement ceremonies, the 124th of these events, brought to you as a public service on UW-TV. The processional is underway, and it will be in all probability the largest in the University of Washington's history.
And given the number of students involved this year, the entrance will probably last about a half an hour or so. Tomorrow, the University of Washington Bothell will graduate 450 students to add to its alumni population, now over 1,500 strong. Like Tacoma, UWB is 9 years old and offers upper division undergraduate, master's, and teacher certification programs.
Construction has begun on UWB's permanent facilities. It will be located on a 127-acre site, formerly known as the Boone Truly Ranch, at the intersection of Highway 522 and I-5 in Bothell. The property was purchased in 1916 by Benjamin Boone, a relative of Daniel Boone. Benjamin was a cowboy and a gold prospector, among other things. He did not, however, strike it rich in Bothell. If all goes according to schedule, move-in will occur in the summer of next year. This will also be the site for the newly created Cascadia Community College.
Part of this new campus was a wetland. In recent years, planners have begun to understand the ecological importance of these areas and to protect them whenever possible. And that's underway at the Bothell site. When the campus is completed, it will be home to the largest restored wetland in the United States. And that will no doubt prove to be an important teaching tool for the students and probably a site for visitors as well.
Much like our campus in this neck of the woods. There is a lot of information about all three University of Washington campuses. You'll find that available on our homepage. We always encourage you to visit that site. We are underway with the 124th Commencement from the University of Washington in Seattle. Today's graduates, faculty members, and others who organize this logistically challenging event are continuing to enter Husky Stadium.
You might be interested in knowing more about some of these logistics and meeting the person most closely connected to them. She's Bev Gessel, a master of detail, and she's been doing this for a very, very long time.
Graduation exercises? Yes, it is. Hi, Bob.
Bev Gessel has been coordinating commencement for 25 years. For her, no task is too large and no detail too small.
The commencement ceremony is the most important function that the university does each year, and we want to make it as enjoyable as we can for the parents and the friends and guests and the candidates. The candidates have been here for many years and they're ready to leave, and we want to send them off with a great hurrah.
Planning for the June ceremony begins in September, 10 months before graduation day. The guest speaker must be chosen, instructions to graduates written, and a million other details coordinated. Bev contacts campus departments, people who build the stage, supply caps and gowns, or provide other services, and the police, both Seattle and UW departments, for traffic control. She even calls the Montlake Bridge tender. Over the years, Bev's responsibilities have increased as the number of graduates has grown.
So I started in the 70s, and the number of graduates that wanted to participate in commencement ceremony was very small. It's grown from probably having 1,000 students participate to 4,500 in 25 years. I'd say it's about 75% of the June graduates that participate. They do enjoy the ceremony.
Besides coordinating logistics to make sure it's an enjoyable day, in January, Bev extends invitations to the 400 special guests who sit on the stage, and she prepares instructions for the marshals, all 150 of them.
We have 3 types of marshals. One marshal would be called a commencement marshal. They have a designated duty on the stadium floor. The next marshal would be the college marshal, and they're the faculty that lead the candidates into the stadium. They drop the candidates off for the seating marshals, who are the commencement marshals. Our other marshal would be the academic procession, and these are faculty members who have volunteered to march in the ceremony. They represent the university, and it's very important to have faculty there, because when you confer degrees, then the faculty are witnessing that these students did get their degrees. I have 150 marshals, and each instruction is different. They are the ones who actually carry the ceremony through. The marshals, if my instructions are correct, it just runs like clockwork. It's very nice. So I have to be sure that they are accurate. And it's a very detailed job, very detailed.
As commencement day approaches, Bev's schedule becomes more hectic. Starting in early May, all graduates must be registered, fitted for caps and gowns, receive tickets, and make sure they're on one of Bev's many lists. Before last year, seating was limited, but the move to Husky Stadium has eliminated that problem.
When we were in Hec Ed, we could only have the kids have 3 guests come. Now they can have as many guests as they want. It's a larger ceremony, but I don't think the kids mind, because I think it's very important to them to have their families see them graduate.
From the end of May right up to and including graduation day, Bev and her staff work non-stop to make sure everything is ready.
We start at 7 o'clock in the morning on commencement day. I take my staff out to breakfast, and at that time I give them their instructions. And then we're over at the stadium by 8 o'clock. We recheck all the seat cards on the stage. We recheck the bathrooms. We check everything.
And it's a good thing she does. A record crowd is expected to watch this 124th commencement today.
Last year, I ordered 35,000 tickets. We gave out 32,000 tickets, and I would say there was probably 29,000 people there. This year, I think we will probably have 32,000 people.
Hope she's right. After all, for her last ceremony, it's only fitting that Bev play to a packed house. And when it's over, the last picture taken, the last balloon set free, what will Bev miss the most?
I'm going to miss the smiles on the kids' faces on commencement day. And the girl who's fixing her hair, or the boy who's very nervous and trying to get his hat just right. And I will miss that, very much so. But I've enjoyed it, and it's been fun. It's a fun job, really is.
It's a fun job, and it shows, and has shown on the faces of thousands of University of Washington students who have taken part in these proceedings. And after 25 years, Bev Gessel is taking a break.
Those who have watched her those years say wild horses couldn't keep her from being here when the 125th commencement rolls around. The garb for graduation is not only colorful, but it is steeped in history. It goes back to a time before what we think of as American history even began. These caps and gowns go back to the 12th century. The styles and the colors that you see are all symbolic.
The students receiving bachelor's and master's degrees are wearing black. Their headgear, known in the trade as the mortarboard, has a tassel that hangs on the left side. For undergraduate students, the color of the tassel denotes the school or college conferring the degree. For example, if you see a blue tassel, you're looking at a business major. An orange tassel is associated with engineering. In all, there are about 20 different colors. The most common is white, the color conferred by the largest college, the College of Arts and Sciences.
Those who are wearing the really colorful outfits are advanced degree candidates and university faculty members. You can identify them by the hoods attached to their gowns. The colors vary for master's degree candidates, something very similar to the undergraduate tassels. I think I have counted at least a half a dozen or so that smack of the colors of the vermilion flycatcher.
And when you see a hood of purple and gold, you'll be looking at a UW doctoral degree candidate wearing, appropriately enough, the university colors and the official UW tan. And that's why the faculty attire is so colorful. They hail from colleges and universities all over the world, and they bring their colors with them.
As you also see, many students do variations on all this traditional theme work. University degree, after all, is supposed to encourage independent thought.
Yeah, some very interesting costumes as we're seeing right now.
Something out of the mid-ages.
Look at this one. That's
E.T. lives.
If you've watched much television over the last few months, you may have seen a public service announcement about the university that a number of TV stations around the state have broadcast. The general theme is knowledge for life. That, of course, is the bottom line for education in general and higher education in particular.
The years that students spend here will in all likelihood be some of the most memorable of their lives, and as you can well imagine, give them a lot more than just employment skills. If there is a single message that higher education imparts to all its students, it is this knowledge for life. Learning never stops, and learning that is crucial to our individual and probably collective lives.
And there are some experiences that all the students you see here have shared. Things like late nights in libraries, times poring over student news in the daily, and of course campus food, known affectionately around here as hub grub.
Or not so affectionately.
We'll be sampling some of those things in the course of this broadcast for you.
And we'll also spend a little time to show you around the campus. The central campus is roughly 300 acres in size. It has an amazing assortment of spectacular vistas, lush foliage, particularly at this time of year, meandering paths as well. This is always open to the public, and a lot of people take the tour.
And if you find yourself in the Seattle area and are interested in meandering some of those paths, plan to stop at the Visitor Center, 1 block east of the Central Campus on Northeast 40th Street. You'll find gobs of information there on places to go and things to do and see. And you can do these things on your own.
Commencement is probably the most notable event in a college student's life. At least it sounds and seems that way today. The moment of getting out of the classroom and into the real world, that may account for all the smiles and screams and laughter and all the other things that are going on today.
There's always a lot of interest around the state in our commencement ceremonies. Students from all over Washington, as well as many from around the nation, are being honored here today. You see them filing in, decked out in caps and gowns, the traditional dress code. We expect over 4,500 to eventually fill these seats. Not everyone marches. The total number of degrees, in fact, awarded this year exceeds 10,000.
About 90% of today's graduates are Washington residents. That is another reason the university is pleased to be able to telecast this event and provide an opportunity for those unable to attend graduation a chance to see and hear these proceedings.
You know, 124 years ago, the very first of these events, there was only one graduate. She was Clara McCarty. One of the campus residence halls is named in her honor. McCarty went on to become the superintendent of schools in Pierce County, the first woman to ever hold that position. No cell phones when Clara graduated, but they've become commonplace in the last few years. And we're looking at some of the folks down on the field right now, talking to their parents and relatives in the stands. Further evidence that, like it or not, we're part of the information age. Some no doubt would argue that it's information overload.
I think I might take that argument. If you have never visited this campus or visited when sunshine was in short supply, we thought you'd enjoy a short tour or two of the university. This is a place of academic excellence, and it is beautiful to boot. This is the most famous view of the university, looking south across Rainier Vista.
You know, there's an old saying attributed to the native peoples of the Northwest to the effect that if you wake up in the morning and can't see this mountain, Mount Rainier, you know it's raining. And if you wake up and you can see a view like this, you know it's going to rain.
Every so often, the sky is clear and the sun shines when Drumheller Fountain is going full bore, and when that happens, it is, as you can see, a sight to behold.
Then there is the Sylvan Theater, so named because these columns were once a part of such a building. This is one of the more quiet, out-of-the-way spots just east of the fountain. And following today's ceremonies, a lot of new graduates, I'm sure, will come here to be photographed with these columns in the background.
Tradition. Many students mistake Edvard Grieg for Mark Twain. There is a remarkable resemblance. The statue of the noted Norwegian composer is in another of the quiet spots on campus, just north of the lawn in front of the hub, the Husky Union building, which is one of the major campus hangouts.
Ah, yes, Hub Grub, as it's been called for years, is a staple around here, shared by just about everybody who's attended the university in recent years. Coffee and reading the daily has been and continues to be a daily event for a lot of UW students.
Another very familiar sight unfolds every spring in the quadrangle, which was one of the first major expansion projects of the 20th century. The buildings are mirror images of each other. Despite their age, they remain classics.
And when the cherry trees that line this lawn area blossom, the colors and the scenery are dramatic. But this scene is going to change over the next few years. Trees are reaching the end of their lifespans and will have to be gradually replaced.
That gradual replacement of this University of Washington hallmark has attracted a lot of attention. And those involved in replacing these trees are being very selective about the way they decide on which trees go and when to minimize that attractive loss that hits home to anybody who's spent much time around here.
And on another note, shall we say, the music for today's event is being performed by the university's wind ensemble. The conductor is Timothy Saltzman. Right now you're listening to the processional medley When the President's Party enters the stadium, you'll hear the familiar refrains of pomp and circumstance.
It's the standard refrain for just about every graduation in the nation. And pomp is certainly a part of this formal event, but most of commencement is informal and just plain fun, and some of it can be inspiring.
And that's likely to happen here today when we hear from our commencement speaker, Julian Bond. He has been an active participant in movements for civil rights, economic justice, and peace for nearly 40 years. I certainly look forward to hearing his remarks.
The scene for the 124th Commencement from the UW is billed as the most scenic football stadium in the nation. The true home of the wave, believed to have begun here in the third quarter of the Husky-Stanford game in October of 1981. A little bit of UW trivia that lives on to this day. When you see the TV networks broadcasting Husky home games, you get a shot of what you will see here presently when we have grand looks across the scenic vistas of Lake Washington, the Cascades, Mount Rainier, and all.
Husky Stadium. It is big and it is beautiful. At least the setting is. You're looking at some of that right now. Clear day. You get this scenic panorama of the stadium, Lake Washington. Usually a lot of boats. Many Husky fans come to the games by boat. And of course the snow-capped Cascade Mountains in the distance.
This is the revised addition to the stadium. The initial structure was built in 1920. It has an interesting historical footnote. The stadium committee wanted to avoid the glare of sunlight, believe it or not, on the field to benefit players. Even then, some games were played in something other than northwest gloom. Two members of the astronomy department figured out the angle to the sun's rays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon of November 24th, 1920, and based on those measurements, the axis of the stadium was set at right angles to those rays. And the result is what you see today, or at least a part of what you see.
Oh, Jim, tell me the sun was out on November 20th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in 1920.
chance.
I don't believe it. And I also don't believe that the stadium construction was completed just 12 hours before kickoff of that inaugural game, November 27th, 1920. It was a packed house then, as is usually the case today, although capacity was much smaller. 24,500 fans attended the first game and saw Dartmouth, unfortunately, defeat Washington 28-7. I wonder if the sun was out.
Well, there certainly was no justice on that opening day. Over the next 30 years, the stadium was expanded to meet the demands of Husky fans, market forces at work even then. The last major addition was done in 1987, and it certainly made its mark.
It sure did. That was the time when the uncompleted steel framework came crashing down. Fortunately, one of the construction supervisors heard some creaks and groans before the great crash and got all the workers off the structure before it collapsed.
And just as things were about to go south, somebody with a camera and presence of mind caught the whole thing on film. That series of photos, I believe, is still being sold.
I think it is. Today's seating capacity is over 72,000, making Husky Stadium the 15th largest such on-campus facility in the nation. Quick question here, Jim. What was the biggest crowd ever for a Husky football game?
I know that question. 1995, the contest with Army, 76,000 showed up. The UW won, but nobody has ever explained how we got 76,000 people in a place with a capacity of 72,000.
One of the great mysteries of life, I guess. We have fewer fans today, about 32,000 family and friends. For today's game, the size of the team, that is the graduates, is considerably larger than you see for football. And the game will be different today. Quarterback Richard McCormick, a scholar of American political history, is the 28th president of the University of Washington.
And you will see that there is no number on his or any of the other uniforms for today's activity. You are watching the 124th Commencement exercises from the University of Washington on UW-TV, Channel 27 in Seattle.
The last groups of future alumni are filtering in. These students, like those before them, are obviously in great spirits as this period of long evenings in the libraries draws to a close. We can only hope that they take these spirits with them as they tackle their next challenge. The President's Party is now entering the stadium, led by Marshal Ron Moore, who will officially open this event. He's followed by President Richard McCormick, members of the Board of Regents, the Provost and the Deans, today's commencement speaker, and a number of other dignitaries.
Eventually, you will see a rather lethal-looking weapon carried by Marshal Ron Moore. That is the mace. It was actually a lethal weapon in medieval days, but it also served as a symbol of status and authority, and that's its role here today, to confer a sort of stamp of approval on these ceremonies.
Displayed, and we thought it would be interesting to give you a first-hand look at it. It reflects the history of the university and is the work of some very talented craftspeople.
Its shaft is made of dark rosewood decorated in gold. The entire mace weighs 5 pounds, and it's about 3 feet long. As we get closer to the top, you can see the triangular headpiece of gold-plated sterling silver, capped by a miniature reproduction of a prominent feature on campus, Drumheller Fountain. Now you see a close-up of the headpiece. There is an engraving on each side of it. This one shows the seal of the university. On this side, you see a representation of the original university building on the old territorial campus. And the last engraving is of Denny Hall, the oldest building on campus, built in 1895.
the very same mace that was used during the University of Washington Tacoma graduation ceremonies yesterday. Today's broadcast is directed by Tim Lorang. Our producer and audio director is Al Ross. Production assistance provided by Carol Gertzema and Cynthia Halderman, Michelle Mansfield, Rich McAdams, and Jerry Wade. The camera crew includes Celeste Glende, Bob O'Hearn, Mike McIntyre, Ed Sponholz, and Randolph Pierce. Our studio engineer is Jerry Morin, and our location engineer is Yankee Deal. Other members of the production crew, Derek Hay, Marion Smith, Patrick Paliolo, Craig Yane, Ted Cutler, Dale Hazapas, and Gary Jordan.
President's Party is ascending the podium, the dais, and the event that you've tuned in for is about to begin. So do sit back, applaud at the appropriate places, and wish these young and not so young people, as we do, the very best. Here it is, the graduating class of 1999 at the University of Washington.
The commencement exercises of the University of Washington will be opened with the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner by Keith Andrew Harris, voice student in the School of Music. The audience will please rise.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. It is my pleasure to present Dr. Richard L. McCormick, President of the University of Washington, who will preside over these exercises.
Thank you, Ron. Welcome to the 124th Commencement Ceremony of the University of Washington. Commencement ceremonies are an expression of academic traditions going back hundreds of years, and they symbolize some of the most fundamental values of our civilization, most particularly the pursuit of truth, the preservation of freedom, and the cultivation of a climate of civility. These ceremonies are also festive, celebrating the commencement of new activities and challenges in the lives of the graduates, as well as the successful conclusion of one phase of their formal education. The diversity of this university is nearly as striking as its distinction, and the graduates today are completing academic courses of study which reflect the complexity of this society and the intellectual concerns of our faculty and students. I am honored, therefore, to be the first to congratulate formally the degree and award recipients and to welcome all of you to this ceremony. These graduates should be very proud of themselves, and I know that all the rest of us are very proud of them. It is appropriate, therefore, that we stand up, all of us, everyone, including the graduates, and applaud the class of 1999. And now I think the graduates should applaud their families and friends who have supported them through the years. Please be seated. Some statistics may be of interest to you. Over the past academic year, 6,300 students have earned the bachelor's degree, and more than 9,200 new degrees overall have been awarded at the University of Washington. About 55% of the bachelor's and 53% of the master's degrees were earned by women. "51% of the new lawyers are women, as are 46% of the new physicians and 30% of the new dentists. 47% of the PhDs were earned by women. Approximately 4,500 of this year's graduates are participating in the ceremony today, and many others have participated in separate ceremonies in various schools and colleges. Some are doing both. We are very pleased to have you and your families and friends here. Last year marked the first time these commencement exercises were held here in Husky Stadium. We made the change so that our graduates could all go through commencement together, and so that more family members and friends could be here to celebrate this memorable milestone with them. Despite the weather risks, which are not evident today, we think the move was a great success, and we hope you agree. The splendid music you have been listening to during the processional, and which you will be hearing more of later in the program, is being provided for us this afternoon by students from the School of Music's Wind Ensemble under the direction of Professor Timothy Salzman. As you can tell, they are gifted musicians, and we greatly appreciate their participation today. The ultimate responsibility for the University of Washington lies with the members of the Board of Regents, 10 citizens of the state who were appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state Senate. These dedicated men and women serve without pay and devote many hours each year to the welfare of the university. 9 of our regents are with us this afternoon, and I would like to introduce them at this time. Cindy Zender, President of the Board of Regents. William H. Gates, Vice President of the Board of Regents. Regent Jeffrey Brotman. Regent Ark Chin. Regent Daniel Evans. Regent Gerald Grinstein. Regent Constance Proctor. Regent Shelley Yap, and the second ever student regent of the University of Washington, Chris Knaus. Ladies and gentlemen, the regents of the University of Washington. In addition to the regents, we have seated on the platform this afternoon the chief academic and administrative officers of the university, including the provost, whom you will meet in a moment, the vice presidents, the deans of the schools and colleges, who will be introduced in due course, the leadership of the faculty senate, the elected student leadership on campus, the president of the Alumni Association, and faculty members, professors emeriti, and other representatives from the various schools, colleges, and departments of our university. I would also like to acknowledge the many members of the faculty serving today as commencement marshals. Their names are listed on page 9 of the commencement program. For 25 years, University of Washington commencements have benefited from the expert guidance of Beverly Gessel, Director of Public Exercises. As you can imagine, staging an event of this magnitude requires months of planning, nerves of steel, and above all, a deep commitment to making this a wonderful occasion for every single graduating student. Today, Bev herself is reaching a milestone. After 43 years of working at the University of Washington, she is retiring. So at this, her final commencement, please join me in thanking and celebrating Bev Gessel. Now I would like to say a few words to the graduates. I wish each of you could stand here beside me for a moment. Actually, you will do that a little later on, and take in the view, a wonderful sea of proud, exuberant faces looking toward the future. There must surely be a little sadness, maybe even a little anxiety out there as well, but I can't see it from here. Nor can I see behind the sameness of your caps and gowns the rich and complex human tapestry that is spread out before us here today, woven out of all the different personal histories, intellectual interests, life paths, hopes, and dreams that you bring to this celebration. That is the nature of a university like this one, with programs in virtually every field of human endeavor and students from around the globe. But despite all your differences, I would guess that you have one thing in common. Each of you brought here today a kind of ghost, the person you used to be 3 or 5 or more years ago when you first arrived at the University of Washington. You might have been a freshman from Yakima, or a transfer student from Edmonds, or a new PhD student from New York. Look back at that person for a moment. If you and we have done our work well, that earlier self has been challenged, enriched, enlarged, and changed. That is the real value of your education here, beyond the stores of knowledge and the professional credentials. That is the real measure of the achievement we celebrate today. Of course, that process will continue for the rest of your lives, but it happens with special intensity and drama during these years you have just completed. It is the great privilege of the University of Washington to be part of that process, to welcome the bright promise you bring as entering students, to teach you with all the rigor and imagination we can muster, to open the door on new possibilities, to work with you through confusions and uncertainties, and then on commencement day to rejoice with you in your accomplishments and proudly send you out into the world. More than you know, you leave behind people who will remember you. You are not the only ones who have been changed by your time here. You have challenged and taught your teachers even as they were teaching you. You have played a part in the constant reshaping of the university itself, as does every generation of student that passes through. You have left a mark. So I hope that through all the twists and turns your lives may take, you will stay connected to the University of Washington. We will always welcome you back. We will always take pride in your victories and achievements. Today we become your alma mater, and now you must share with us responsibility for ensuring the future of your university, for keeping it just as rich with opportunity and excellence for the next generation of students as it has been for you. Farewell, and in the words of the old Irish blessing, may the wind be always at your back. The Chief Academic and Budget Officer of the university is Provost Lee Huntsman, who will present this year's Teaching and Public Service Awards. Provost Huntsman.
In order to strengthen the university's dedication to teaching excellence, the university each year presents Distinguished Teaching Awards to faculty and Excellence in Teaching Awards to graduate teaching assistants. 6 University of Washington professors and 2 graduate students with teaching responsibilities have been selected to receive awards this year. I will ask them to rise and remain standing until all are introduced. The recipients of the Distinguished Teaching Awards are Anna Marie Casse, Professor of Psychology and Chair of American Ethnic Studies; David Collingwood, Professor of Mathematics; Rasat Kasaba, Associate Professor of International Studies; Anthony Gill, Assistant Professor of Political Science; and June Marita, Senior Lecturer in Management Science. The recipient of the Distinguished Graduate Mentor Award is Nola Weiss, Professor of Epidemiology. The recipients of the Excellence in Teaching Awards are Pamela Ralston, Teaching Assistant in Comparative Literature, and David Shapiro, Teaching Assistant in Philosophy. Selected by a committee of faculty, students, and alumni, these honorees were cited for superior mastery of their disciplines, the ability to transmit knowledge, and their concern for students. We are proud of our teaching faculty, and the honor these recipients receive today is especially precious to members of the academic community. Please join me in applauding these exceptional teachers. The university also presents an award in recognition of outstanding public service on the part of a university faculty or staff member. This year's recipient is Dr. Albert Black, Senior Lecturer in Sociology. Dr. Black teaches and studies race relations, the Black family, and youth violence and gangs. In the community, he has for many years been an invaluable resource and an inspiration to those working with disadvantaged and disaffected young people. He has helped and advised community organizations from the Seattle Public Schools to Mount Zion Baptist Church to Big Brothers. He has recruited UW students as tutors in schools and in juvenile detention centers. He has written a curriculum on African American social history for the Renton School District. At Franklin High School, he founded and chaired the Franklin Fathers Group to increase adult presence in the lives of students. Dr. Black also works directly with young people. His rapport with youth at risk is remarkable, as he talks to them about values, possibilities, and the crucial role of hard work and discipline. For leadership, selfless dedication to the welfare of young people, and countless hours of unpaid work in the service of his ideals, the University of Washington commends him.
Since 1932, we have presented a medal to the graduating senior who has achieved the most distinguished academic record at the university. Will Catherine Elizabeth Temple please come forward? Kathy grew up in Green Acres, Washington, just this side of the Idaho border, and was valedictorian of her 1995 graduating class at Central Valley High School. In her 4 years at the UW, she has earned 2 Bachelor of Science degrees, one in mathematics and one in economics, while winning virtually every available award from both departments. In fact, last year the economics department had to make up a new award for her because they'd already given her all the others. Grades are not the sole determinant of this award. The committee that selects the recipient looks at other things as well, such as the number of honors and upper division courses, but grades are important. Kathy is graduating with a grade point average of 3.96. She won the medal for highest academic achievement in her freshman class. She's been on every annual dean's list and was elected to Phi Beta Kappa. Kathy served as a teaching assistant in math and a research assistant in economics, and she spent last summer at Indiana University in the National Science Foundation program called Research Experiences for Undergraduates. Kathy is also an organ student, a violinist in the UW Orchestra, and a member of her church choir. Next fall, she will begin graduate study in mathematics at the University of Wisconsin. It is my pleasure to present you, Kathy, this medal in recognition of your outstanding achievements at our university. At this time, I would also like to recognize those students who were candidates for the President's Medal by virtue of academic performance in the top 0.5% of all graduating seniors in their respective colleges. These students, along with the President's Medalist, are today graduating with the university's highest baccalaureate honor, summa cum laude. Their names are listed on page 12 of the commencement program. Also listed are the names of the students who are being graduated magna cum laude and cum laude. Since 1938, the university and the Alumni Association have presented an award to a former University of Washington student whose work has attained national or international prominence. The Alumnus Summa Laude Dignatus Award, which means alumnus worthy of the highest praise, is the highest honor bestowed by the university. The recipient is selected by a committee of university faculty and alumni. It gives me great pleasure today to add to the long and distinguished list of individuals who have received this award the name of James R. Ellis, a visionary civic leader for more than 40 years. Mr. Ellis, please join me at the lectern. That's great. Terrific. After graduating from the University of Washington Law School in 1948, Jim Ellis practiced municipal bond law in Seattle for 42 years and won a national reputation in the field. He was a trustee of the Ford Foundation and held other national posts. He also served as a regent of the University of Washington from 1965 to 1977, 12 sometimes turbulent years. But Mr. Ellis is known above all for teaching the Puget Sound region to think and act regionally. Metro, the agency that cleaned up Lake Washington, grew out of a speech he gave in 1953 about the need for regional approaches to problems. Forward Thrust, which he chaired from 1966 to 1973, was another campaign to win voter approval for broad investments in our region. It gave us the Kingdome, the Seattle Aquarium, Freeway Park, and the leading of I-5, Waterfront Park, Luther Burbank Park, Mary Moore Park, and the county-wide Metro transit system. Other Ellis legacies include the State Convention and Trade Center, protection of endangered farmlands in King County, and now the Mountains to Sound Greenway Trust, which is working to preserve a green corridor along I-90 from Snoqualmie Pass to Seattle. For the extraordinary blend of vision, passion, consensus building, and patient hard work that have made him the first citizen of the Puget Sound region, his alma mater honors James Ellis as its 1999 alumnus summa laude dignatus. The University of Washington Alumni Association plays a vital role in the life of the university and provides a continuing link between our graduates and their alma mater. The association also provides essential support for the institution. I am pleased to introduce to you Mr. Corey Carlson, class of 1981, president of the UW Alumni Association.
On behalf of the University of Washington Alumni Association, congratulations to all of you. We look at you today with your tremendous accomplishment, and we welcome you today as alumni. While your time as a student may have come to an end, your tenure as an alumnus is forever. You now join the ranks of graduates from this university. You are a member of a very distinguished, historic, and exclusive body. Our responsibility at the Alumni Association is to keep you in touch with what is now your alma mater, let you know what continues to happen here, and encourage your success as you go out and stake your place in the world. Even now, degree almost in hand and mission accomplished, your time at Washington hasn't ended. The door is always open, the welcome mat ready for your return. There will always be a place for you here. We invite you to come back. Opportunities are endless: homecoming, seminars, sporting events, supporting and advising your school. Don't wait for your 50-year reunion. Just as you needed this university to move ahead and realize your dreams, now this university needs you. Your assignment hasn't ended, it's only changed. No longer will we be asking you to research and write papers, to study for exams, or to complete those required readings. You are now the caretaker of your university. Together, we must work to ensure the future generations of students have the same opportunity that you did, an opportunity to experience all that this great university has to offer. And I am pleased to announce today that many of you are already givers. As a result of the first ever senior gift campaign, your class has already pledged over $10,000 to this university, and it is thankful. Remember, an alma mater is more than a memory. The University of Washington will always be your university, no matter where you are or where life takes you. It is a connection that will last forever. And to support your connection, I'm also pleased to announce that you, the class of 1999, will be the first graduates of the University of Washington allowed to retain your email address for the rest of your life. With only slight modification, it will be transferred over to the Alumni Association so that you will always be able to stay in touch with your friends as you move out to the various careers and locations that life will take you. Please watch your email for further details. On behalf of the 250,000, now as of today, 260,000 fellow alumni, I wish you good luck and life's wonderful bounty.
Student government is an important component of the governance of the University of Washington, and its leadership is called on regularly to represent student views on a wide range of issues before the university. I am pleased to introduce the Vice President of the Associated Students of the University of Washington, Ivan Barron.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm still really excited about this email thing. I'm thrilled about that. And I'm thrilled about being here to share some of my thoughts with you today. This event is unique because we are the last graduating class of the 20th century. This has been a century marked with tremendous changes and achievements that have shaped where we are today. As we sit here, the chapter of the 20th century comes to a close, and we are set to begin filling the pages of the coming century with color, with life, and with meaning. Yet, unlike actors, we do not have a script in front of us to tell us what that role will be. We must discover that on our own. The most important part of that discovery is the journey to find our passion. That passion is different and unique for each one of us. Hopefully, through our journey here at the university, we have discovered or stumbled upon this passion. But let me offer an observation. I believe the search for passion does not involve looking outward, but rather looking inward. It involves being honest with ourselves about our beliefs and values, and never compromising our integrity. It means having the courage to be original with our thinking and making an effort to see the world with new eyes. It requires that we don't get so caught up in reaching a destination that we lose sight of the journey along the way. It necessitates dreaming big and following those dreams. Think about this. Everything that is reality today was once only a dream. Finally, the search for passion means finding the strength to stand up for our beliefs and maintain our dreams in the face of adversity. This will be one of the greatest challenges we will face. A great individual of the 20th century was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King had the courage to see the world not only as it was, but as he envisioned it could be, and the courage to stand up and fight for his beliefs. In summary, here's what Dr. King had to say about that fight. The true measure of an individual is not measured by where they stand in times of comfort and convenience, but where they stand in times of conflict and controversy. Even though we may encounter conflict and controversy in our lives, we must not let these challenges stop us. Our futures will not be solely defined by the challenges we face, but rather by the way in which we respond to those challenges. I'm confident about our ability to overcome challenges and achieve extraordinary things in our lives. I'm assured that with our passion and our skills, we will make outstanding contributions to the world. These contributions we'll make will affect a great number of people. For that reason, it is important that we think beyond ourselves when we take decisions. I've heard it said that any action, no matter how small, creates a ripple effect with far-reaching consequences. We must understand that our actions have far-reaching effects in geographic space and time. Future generations will benefit or suffer because of these actions. We must make an effort to think intergenerationally and keep in mind the welfare of those who will be sitting here 100 years from now at the end of the 21st century. No matter what our major or occupation, we must always think about how to make positive contributions, keeping in mind how we can provide service to our communities and help out those who are less fortunate. Based upon my personal experience, I think it's also very important that we ensure that access to educational opportunities remain available for those who will follow in our path. Our own journeys demonstrate the value of education in enriching our lives. My dream is that 100 years from now, the members of the class of 2099 will comment that it was our generation that was responsible for laying the foundation for their success because of our foresight and our passion. That will be our legacy. So let's devote our lives to our passions and to fulfilling our dreams. There can be no greater purpose or meaning in life. Congratulations, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
This afternoon's commencement speaker is Julian Bond, Chairman of the Board of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and a longtime leader of movements for civil rights, economic justice, and peace. Mr. Bond was born in Nashville and grew up in Pennsylvania, where his father was president of Lincoln University, the country's oldest black private college. While studying at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Julian Bond helped found a student civil rights organization that won integration of Atlanta's movie theaters, lunch counters, and parks. In 1960, together with several hundred other students from across the South, he formed the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and soon became its communications director, working in voter registration drives in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas. After twice winning and being refused seats in the Georgia House of Representatives because of his race, Mr. Bond went on to serve for 20 years in the Georgia General Assembly, winning election to public office more times than any other black Georgian in history. He waged a successful 2-year fight to create a majority black congressional district in Atlanta. Mr. Bond served 4 terms on the NAACP National Board and last year was elected its chairman. He is a member of several other boards of directors and advisory boards and is president emeritus of the Southern Poverty Law Center. He holds honorary degrees from 15 schools and is currently a scholar in residence at American University in Washington and a professor in the University of Virginia's Carter G. Woodson Institute for Afro-American and African Studies. Mr. Bond is the author of Black Candidates, Southern Campaign Experiences, numerous poems and articles, and a collection of his essays entitled A Time to Speak and a Time to Act. Please welcome Mr. Julian Bond.
Thank you. President McCormick, members of the faculty, administrators, parents, and most importantly, graduates, it is a high honor to have been asked to speak here today. As you've heard, I am the son of a college president, and because of that, I attended many ceremonies like this one in my younger years. The one that stands out most prominently in my own mind was my own graduation from high school many, many years ago. The speaker then was the late Mordecai Johnson, then the president of Howard University. He spoke without a note for almost 3 hours. Sitting where you are sitting in the afternoon sun, I said to myself, someday I'll get a chance to do that. Luckily for you, this isn't it. It is, however, the occasion for congratulations to you and for reflections from me. I am the grandson of a slave. My grandfather was born in 1863 in Kentucky, and because of this, freedom didn't come for him until the 13th Amendment was ratified in 1865. His slave mother had been given away as a wedding present to a new bride. And when that bride became pregnant, her husband, that's my great-grandmother's owner and master, exercised his right to take his wife's slave as his mistress. That union produced 2 children, one of them my grandfather. At age 15, barely able to read and write, he hitched his tuition, a steer, to a rope and walked 100 miles across Kentucky to Berea College. And Berea took him in. 16 years later, he graduated, and the college asked him to deliver the commencement address. He said then, the pessimist from his corner looks out on the world of wickedness and sin, and blinded by all that is good and hopeful in the condition and the progress of the human race, bewails the present state of affairs and predicts woeful things for the future. In every cloud he beholds a destructive storm, in every flash of lightning an omen of evil, and in every shadow that falls across his path a lurking foe. But he forgets that the clouds also bring life and hope, that the lightning purifies the atmosphere, that shadow and darkness prepare for sunshine and growth, and that hardships and adversity nerve the race as the individual for greater efforts and grander victories. Greater efforts and grander victories. That was the promise his generation made to us more than 100 years ago. That was the promise made by the generation that won the Great World War for Democracy 5 decades ago. That was the promise made by those who brought democracy to America's darkest corners 3 decades ago. And that is the promise you must seek to honor as you leave these protected walls to enter a world that is sometimes hostile and where that hostility is sometimes based on gender, ethnicity, or color, based on the differences created by the Almighty's hand. You graduate at an auspicious time and place. This year marks the 45th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education, the landmark 1954 school integration decision. This place, Washington State, is most recently where the nation tested its commitment to expanding democracy and where the status anxieties of the shrinking American majority were played out. During the years while you have been earning your degrees, the state of Washington earned the dubious distinction of becoming only the second state after California to say no to affirmative action, the most effective tool against discrimination based on gender, ethnicity, or color. In this country, we have seen just one generation of multiracial campuses, only one such generation in our nation's history. That novel and radical, if temporary, change in American higher education occurred only because a nonviolent army, emboldened by the Brown decision ending legalized segregation, was also given license to challenge segregation's morality as well. Army is an apt description of that cadre of women and men because they were at war, and as in war, suffered real casualties. But they also won real victories at lunch counters, movie theaters, bus stations, and polling places. Eventually, with the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, that army thought it had finally won the war. But as the nation emerged from the battlefield and from the decades of oppression that led up to it, it understood that the black man deserved to be the special favorite of the laws, that only in this way could the cycle of discrimination and disadvantage be ended. Only in this way could we reduce inequality in income, housing, employment, education, and life chances between whites and blacks. As Martin Luther King observed in 1963, it is impossible to create a formula for the future which does not take into account that our society has been doing something special against the Negro for hundreds of years. How then can he be absorbed into the mainstream of American life if we do not do something special for him now in order to balance the equation and equip him to compete on a just and equal basis? Thus was born affirmative action, the just spoils of a righteous war. Now, as we find ourselves refighting old battles we thought already won, we hope that there are among your generation those who will exert greater efforts to obtain grander victories in the context of the central moral dilemma of our nation, how it treats the one group whose members it enslaved. In this state and at this university, the dilemma will be how to continue to provide access and opportunity to all and to ensure diversity in the wake of the passage of Initiative 200. In a few months, we will all see what almost no American living now has ever seen: the birth of a new century and the death of an old one. I will have lived most of my life in the 20th century. You will live most of your lives in the 21st. So you are pioneers in the sense that, like explorers of unmapped territory, you will soon enter a new domain where none has gone before you. Like all explorers of uncharted regions, you will need all the optimism you can muster to face the future that lies ahead. I teach at the university founded by Thomas Jefferson, teaching young people like yourselves about the modern-day struggle for human liberty. That struggle has its roots more deeply planted in Jefferson's words than in his deeds, and finds its parallels in my grandfather's membership in a transcendent generation, that body of women and men born in slavery in the 19th century, freed from slavery by the Civil War, determined to make their way as free women and men. I teach my students about a more recent transcendent generation than my grandfather's. They learn about a generation born in segregation in the 20th century, freed from racism's restraints through their own efforts, equally determined to make their way as free women and men. One of my tasks as teacher is to demonstrate the democratic and optimistic nature of the movement for civil rights. By aiming a microscope at the movement's mass, I help my students discover heroines and heroes unknown. I hope to demonstrate the confidence and the sense of possibility which was that movement's engine. By giving voice to the hopefulness of earlier generations who faced resistance my students have never known and will never know, I hope to make heroism more available to them, more attainable to a generation inclined to see through a glass darkly. In many ways, the Southern freedom movement of yesterday was a second Reconstruction, whose ripples were felt far beyond the Southern states and whose victories benefited far more than blacks. Before that movement slowed, it was our democracy's finest hour. A voteless people voted with their bodies and their feet and paved the way for other social protests. The anti-war movement of the 1960s drew its earliest soldiers from the Southern Freedom Army. The reborn movement for women's rights took many of its cues and much of its momentum from the Southern movement for civil rights. These three great impediments to our democracy's success, racial bias, gender discrimination, abuse of power, all were weakened by the movement's drive, and we are all better for it today. In those successes, the movement has much to teach us today. As bombs fell in Kosovo, we looked back at Vietnam to discover what went wrong. We can look back at movement days to discover what went right. An old freedom song reminds us, ain't but one thing we did wrong, we stayed in segregation a day too long. Ain't but one thing we did right, that's the day we started to fight. You bear witness to things done right, and to the truth that the struggle for liberty goes on, here in Washington, in every part of the United States, across the surface of the earth. You are about to join an elite within our nation, the community of educated women and men. As you go forward from this place, I am sure you will do well, but I hope you will also do good. You have done your best so far. That is why you are here today. I urge you to continue to do and to be your best, to use your talents not just for bettering yourselves, but for bettering your world. In order to do that, it will not be enough to be neutral on the pressing issues of the day, including diversity. It will not even be enough to be moderate. Many thought Initiative 200 would not pass here in Washington because this is a moderate state. But Martin Luther King also taught us something about moderation. In his letter from the Birmingham jail, he wrote, "I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice." Injustice does not come from a single source. Instead, separate strands are woven through history to form a rigid coil, a noose that often strangles human freedom and ties together those forces which oppose it. It is through those efforts that the noose can be severed, and eventually can be cut. As Robert Kennedy once said, "Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events, and in the total of these acts will be written the history of each generation. It is from numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man or woman stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, these ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. To the graduates today, you have the potential to create a current that can change the world. There are possibilities ahead for you, for greater efforts and grander victories. We wish you the best. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to present the various degrees to all candidates. The audience is requested to remain in their seats until the conclusion of today's ceremony. Candidates for the doctor's degree in the School of Medicine will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Daniel Hunt.
Mr. President, it is my honor to present to you the list of the 160 students who are candidates for the degree of the Doctor of Medicine. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Medicine be awarded their doctoral degree. These candidates have been honored in a previous ceremony, as many have gone on to postgraduate training. Those of you here today will come forward with the other doctoral candidates.
Candidates for a doctor's degree in the School of Dentistry will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Thomas H. Morton, Jr.
Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present a list of doctoral candidates from the School of Dentistry. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements be awarded their doctoral degrees. These graduates were honored at a separate ceremony.
Candidates for Juris Doctor degrees in the School of Law, Mr. President, will be presented to you by Dean Roland Hjorth.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Faculty of Law, I have the honor to present a list of the 172 candidates for the degree of Juris Doctor, with the recommendation that each who has fulfilled the requirements be awarded that degree. Ceremonies to honor these graduates were held elsewhere. The law graduates participating in this ceremony will come forward with the other doctoral candidates.
Candidates for Doctor of Pharmacy degrees in the School of Pharmacy would be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Sidney Nelson.
Would the candidates for the professional degree of Doctor of Pharmacy please stand? Mr. President, I would like to present to you a list of the 80 candidates for the professional Doctor of Pharmacy degree. I recommend that these candidates who have fulfilled their requirements be awarded their degrees. Most of these candidates were awarded degrees last night in separate ceremonies, and many of them are recovering from parties. Or they are studying for their state board exams. Those who are present will come forward with the remaining doctoral candidates.
On behalf of the regents and the faculties of the respective schools, I am pleased to confer upon these candidates the degree of Doctor of Medicine, Doctor of Dental Surgery, Juris Doctor, or Doctor of Pharmacy.
Candidates for doctoral degrees will be presented by Dean Marcia Landolt of the Graduate School.
Mr. President, here with us today are candidates who have completed all requirements for the degrees of Doctor of Philosophy, Doctor of Education, and Doctor of Musical Arts. Will the doctoral candidates please rise? Mr. President, on behalf of the deans of the schools and colleges and the graduate faculty, it's my honor and pleasure to present these candidates for the highest degrees awarded by the university. The names of those receiving doctoral degrees this year are listed in the commencement program, along with the titles of their dissertations and the names of their faculty supervisors. I recommend that these candidates be awarded their respective doctoral degrees.
On behalf of the regents and the graduate faculty, I am pleased to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Doctor of Education, or Doctor of Musical Arts. Congratulations. You have achieved high academic distinction, and this university salutes you. You will be presented today with a memento of this graduation exercise, so please come forward.
Maria Duryea, Anthropology.
Lisa J. Madden, Neurobiology and Behavior.
Patricia Olivia Covarrubias, Speech Communication.
Mitchell John Dale Rao, Epidemiology.
Scott Leibarger, Speech Communication.
Annette L. Fitzpatrick, Epidemiology.
Thomas Lane Nisley, English.
Evelyn Sue Johnson, Education.
Wendy Ann Summerson, English.
Mark James Larson, Education.
Dagny Ann Bredesen, English.
Michelle Keller Larkin, Biochemistry.
Eric Christian Christensen, Comparative Literature.
Blake Edward Feist, Fisheries.
Young Jong Choi, Political Science.
Warren Scott Edwards, Electrical Engineering.
Mark Musari, Scandinavian Language and Literature.
Mary Holland Johnson, Electrical Engineering.
Mark Davis Boland, Sociology.
Jan Giles, Education.
Alexander M. Aronoff, Chemistry.
Sapna Jan, Medicine.
Enrique Batista, Physics.
Therese Marie Grant, Epidemiology.
Joseph Siebert Balargian, English.
Daniel Henry Ito, Fisheries.
Scott Barboza, Geological Sciences.
Sam Dufat Wynn, Electrical Engineering.
Christian Thomas Asplund, Musical Arts, Composition.
Stephen Craig Venema, Electrical Engineering.
Paul Broomhead, Music Education.
Ming Che Huang, Electrical Engineering.
James Adams Anderson, History.
Lisa Lynn Sharp, Education.
Bradley Scott Ambrose, Physics.
Min On T. Hodge, Education.
Erica M. Zettner, Speech and Hearing Sciences.
Sarah Hinckley, Fisheries.
Rebecca K. Delaney, Education.
Da Ming Shan, Medicine.
Donald Wayne Horde, Astronomy.
Gin Sung Yi, Electrical Engineering.
Stephanie Wachter, Astronomy.
Mark Gray, Forest Soils.
Rie Nakamura, Anthropology.
Paul Rosenfeld, Forest Soils.
Eileen Hayes, Music.
Roberta Sue Jacobs, Forest Resources.
Almaz Khan, Anthropology.
Unapam Kumar Datu Mujumdar.
Lori Ann Stephan, English.
Karen Sue Henry, Civil Engineering.
Carl D. Grove, English.
David Max Braun, Ecosystems Analysis.
Andrew Gettelman, Atmospheric Sciences.
Eric Warren Selberg, Computer Science and Engineering.
Susan Rock Georgesink, English.
Andrew Philip Berman, Computer Science and Engineering.
Elizabeth C. Fortenberry, Anthropology.
Darren Charles Cronquist, Computer Science and Engineering.
Alexei N. Naimushin, Chemistry.
Sung Un Choi, Computer Science and Engineering.
May Evans, English.
Christopher Halaska, Special Individual PhD.
Constance Margaret Eichenlaub, Comparative Literature.
Ibrahim M. Halej, Electrical Engineering.
John Mark Ekman, English.
Christopher Dean Jones, Electrical Engineering.
Frederick Werner Thomas Lacken, Musical Arts, Choral Conducting.
Lisa Ann Schubert, Immunology.
Patana Kitiarsa, Anthropology.
Catherine Ellsworth Gruben, Immunology.
Renee Fester Kratz, Botany.
Frank T. Rothermall, Business School.
Glenn G. Cooper, Jr., Speech Communication.
Anne Neal Garfinkel, Education.
Jean M. Langford, Anthropology.
Craig A. Jensen, Electrical Engineering.
Gregory Mitchell Lee, Chemistry.
Frank S. Holman III, Electrical Engineering.
Mark M. Lester, English.
Veno Chu, Bioengineering.
Julia Lida, English.
Kamal Mustafa Ahmed, Civil and Environmental Engineering.
Andrea Diane Lingenfelter, Asian Languages and Literature.
Linda T. Boyle, Civil Engineering.
Cecilia Chessa, Political Science.
Scott Stewart Washburn, Civil Engineering.
Mark Charles Donovan, Political Science.
Hwasun O. Chung, Pathobiology.
Jennifer Louise Ward Batts, Economics.
Ria Nadine Kohler, Pathobiology.
Deborah Ann Fogarty, Economics.
Richard Allen Black, Aeronautics and Astronautics Engineering.
Renee Antoinette Irvin, Economics.
Peter Alexei Gurevich, Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Gretchen Ann Murphy, English.
Hillary Ellen Hartnett, Oceanography.
Julie H. Magruder, Anthropology.
John Patrick Dunn, Oceanography.
Rebecca Sue Henderson, Sociology.
Frederick Roland Starr, Oceanography.
Ene Katrina Tuomen, Sociology.
David Lee Frick, Education.
Rachel Gregg, Sociology.
Dawn Laura Scoville, Chemical Engineering.
Leslie Hurt Marks, Music Performance.
Etsuko Scully, Education.
Xin Yu Lu, Geophysics.
Brian D. Bagwandine, Bioengineering.
Jennifer Ellen McLean, Psychology.
Emily Davis Silverman, Quantitative Ecology and Resource Management.
Sheila Rebecca McNerney, Drama.
Karen O. Yee, Molecular and Cellular Biology.
Danielle Christie Barberini Polage, Psychology.
Enming Joseph Su, Pathology.
Mark Aaron Birnbaum, Psychology.
Cornelia Marin Ulrich, Epidemiology.
Kelly Alexandra Forrest, Psychology.
David R. Adams, Molecular Biotechnology.
Michelle Therese Seidel, Botany.
Elizabeth Joan Bridges, Nursing.
Jeffrey Daniel Muzak, Geophysics.
Sharon E. Parkman, Nursing.
Peter Berger Nelson, Geography.
April Ann Gerlach, Nursing.
Deborah Ruth Oman, Geography.
Catherine L. Connon, Nursing.
Tanya Alexandra Pergola, Sociology.
Diana Lynn Woods, Nursing.
Jarrett Paschal, Sociology.
Walaya Tampan Icham Wathob, Nursing.
Nikolai Lee Pazderek, Anthropology.
Chanakporn Hanchan Chaiko, Nursing.
Hai Run, Anthropology.
Eleanor Lee, Nursing.
Julaine Adele Pommert, Speech Communication.
Nancy Beth Beck, Environmental Health.
Gigi Annette Peterson, History.
Michelle Catherine Catlin, Environmental Health.
John Yuri Putz, Physics.
Peregrine Oliver Spielholz, Environmental Health.
Francis Jean Malloy, Economics.
Eric Andrew Finkelstein, Economics.
Timothy George Riley, Slavic Languages and Literature.
Russell D. Brunel, Industrial Engineering.
Wesley Thomas, Anthropology.
Xiang Ning Li, Bioengineering.
Brooke Patterson Skelton, Astronomy.
Jisheng Liang, Electrical Engineering.
Melissa Marie Kane, Speech Communication.
Heather Suzanne Lonzak, Education.
Hai Jung Dong, Chemistry.
Irene M. Akiyama, Pharmacy.
Ji Hong Liu, Chemistry.
Jeannie Akiko Tsukamoto, Pharmacy.
Sarah Margareta Gibbs, Neurobiology and Behavior.
Stephen John Goodlad, Education.
Duke Tran, Mechanical Engineering.
Yun Pak, Education.
Ji Hong Guo, Chemical Engineering.
Risa McCullough Wanbonsi, Education.
Leong Ma, Mechanical Engineering.
Gary David Cohn, Education.
Jennifer Vanderheyden, Romance Languages and Literature.
Andre Jose Branch, Education.
John Charles Roth, Mathematics.
Andrea Beth Freed, Education.
Michelle Thompson, History.
Elizabeth Faye Barnett, Education.
Alice Taff, Linguistics.
Mary Stone Hanley, Education.
Holly Lynn Storkel, Speech and Hearing Sciences.
Jerry Buckley, Education.
Yi Lan Chen, Education.
Diana Hess, Education.
Belinda K. Hill, Education.
Donna Louise Ross, Education.
Margaret Burnley Spearman, Education.
Patricia L. Chastain, Education.
Sarah Kim, Education.
Laura Dawn Hathaway, Education.
Clifford Edward Solomon, Education.
John M. Brunkemeyer, Bioengineering.
Michael Jeffrey Drinnen, Mathematics.
Wei Bo Tsai, Bioengineering.
Hyo Jin Kang, Music.
Karen Diana Tidwell, Bioengineering.
Zhao Hua Wu, Atmospheric Sciences.
Huai Chu Chi, Bioengineering.
Lang Wu, Statistics.
Stephen Christopher Porter, Chemical Engineering.
Lee Stewart Nave, Mathematics.
Stephen David Leith, Chemical Engineering.
Joanna Francis Self, Psychology.
Brian T.G., Business.
Eleanor Lydia Kim, psychology.
Tong Der U, electrical engineering.
Kenneth Rolf Weingart, psychology.
Wan Fen Lee, environmental health.
Alan Ching-Ti Yen, botany.
Therese Frances Marr, environmental health.
Joan Eileen Kazi, geography.
Julie Elizabeth Penzotti, bioengineering.
Hai Hua Yan, geography.
Randy M. Henney, bioengineering.
Peter Michael Bowers, biochemistry.
Jisuk Park, education.
Keith Frost, physics.
Young Suk Lim, education.
Glenn Albert Johnson, speech and hearing sciences.
Song Ren, pharmaceutics.
Xiao Zhan Li, economics.
Chong Hong Wang, environmental health.
Peter Simmons Hodder, chemistry.
Kay Marie Sagmiller, education.
Stephen Conin, physics.
Wendy Pokonen Loomis, microbiology.
Michael Eric Loverood, physics.
Curtis Wayne Adams, microbiology.
Kirsten Ruth Lorenzen, geophysics.
Thomas Singlai Tan, microbiology.
Amy Catherine Snover, chemistry.
Zhongtai Leng, pathobiology.
Barbara Rodriguez, speech and hearing sciences.
Yuting Zhou, pathobiology.
Lori Banghart Slater, anthropology.
Pai Xiang Zhou, computer science and engineering.
Kristen Ray Swanson, applied mathematics.
Xiao In Wang, School of Nursing.
Donna Ann Calhoun, applied mathematics.
Irini Wagi Barsoom, pharmacy.
Eric Brian Villard, history.
Jinhee Q, physics.
Christopher G. Walter, geophysics.
Nicole Nanette Eckhart Wynn, pharmacy.
Patricia Costa Kim, music education.
Margaret Marie Canestis.
Mark Byron Neller, chemistry.
Rebecca W. Lau, pharmacy.
John Hsu, economics.
Yvonne T. Bowie, pharmacy. Tom Kin Chow, pharmacy. Sandy Faye Lee, pharmacy. Deborah Meg Wu, pharmacy. Tracy Harris, pharmacy.
Candidates for master's degrees will be presented by Dean Landolt of the Graduate School.
Candidates for master's degrees will please rise as your degree is named and remain standing. Master of Aerospace Engineering. Master of Architecture. Master of Arts. Master of Arts for Teachers. Master of Arts in International Studies. Master of Business Administration. Master of Education. Master of Fine Arts, Master of Health Administration, Master of Landscape Architecture, Master of Laws, Master of Library and Information Science, Master of Marine Affairs, Master of Music, Master of Nursing, Master of Professional Accounting, Master of Public Administration, Master of Public Health, Master of Science in Aeronautics and Astronautics, Master of Science in Civil Engineering, Master of Science in Construction Management, Master of Science in Dentistry, Master of Science in Electrical Engineering, Master of Science in Engineering, Master of Science in Industrial Engineering, Master of Science in Materials Science and Engineering, Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering, Master of Science, Master of Social Work, Master in Teaching, Master of Urban Planning. Mr. President, I would like to introduce Dean Alan D. Glenn of the College of Education to introduce the master's candidates from that college.
Mr. President, the candidates for the degree of Master of Education will come forward with the other candidates.
Mr. President, I would like to introduce Dean Mark Lindenberg of the Daniel J. Evans School of Public Affairs to introduce the master's candidate from that school.
Candidates for the degree of Master of Public Administration in the Daniel J. Evans School of Public Affairs will please come forward with the other candidates.
Mr. President, on behalf of the deans of the schools and colleges and the graduate faculty, I'm honored to present these candidates for master's degree and recommend that these candidates be awarded their respective master's degrees.
On behalf of the regents and the graduate faculty, I am pleased to confer upon each of you your master's degree. Congratulations. You will be presented today with a memento of this graduation exercise, so please come forward.
You are watching the master's degree candidates of the class of 1999 filing up to receive their degrees. And while this portion of the event is underway, we'd like to introduce you to the first student regent at the university. Her name is Jennifer Frankel, and she made an impressive first impression.
Most people know the university has a board of regents. Few have any idea what a regent actually does. Just for the record, regents, among other things, set policy, decide matters related to property issues. They also choose new university presidents, and they don't get paid. Regents are appointed by the governor and serve 6-year terms. Some of the state's most distinguished citizens have held this job. Last year, after years of debate, the state legislature decided to let the governor appoint a student to this board.
Our first ever student regent, recently appointed by Governor Locke, Regent Jennifer Frankel.
There have been attempts to have student regents for at least 30 years. When I was governor, I opposed it. I didn't think it was a good idea. When I was president of the Evergreen State College, when it came up, I opposed it again because I didn't think it was a good idea. I was pretty skeptical when the legislature finally passed it, and I've got to say, after this year, I was simply wrong.
So she just set the standard right from the beginning that she was one of our colleagues. She acted that way, and that's the kind of respect and response that she got from us.
I would say overall it was good. I mean, it was very good. I really enjoyed my year, and I learned a lot. It's a great deal of work. It's much more work than I thought that it would be. A lot of reading and a lot of meetings and other sort of functions that you're expected to go to, and so it was a huge time commitment, but it was And the issues were difficult, especially at the beginning, to get a grasp of and to understand really what it entailed and what the repercussions of certain decisions were. And it was more work, but it was also a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I mean, the other regents are, they're really incredible people. They're very funny, and they're very relaxed people. So that was really much more enjoyable than I thought it would be. The actual meetings were a lot of fun. And I think the importance of having a student on the board is that I think that the people on the board, the other regents, they're so far removed from school that they don't remember what it's like to be a student. And I think that this institution, there's so much of the business of running it, and that takes up so much time and energy. And a lot of it doesn't have anything to do directly with the students, like investing or capital projects. And I think that people sometimes forget that there are students here. And I know that sounds ludicrous because there's 35,000 of us.
The amount of debt that people come out with. We've had a long conversation about tuition, as you probably know. And it seems to always center around law students and medical students. And I just am wondering.
It was beneficial to have somebody who was a student. She certainly did bring that viewpoint. And we appreciated hearing it. Her ideas on many things we appreciated, but it was also good to have that viewpoint presented.
On sort of side notes, I've had a lot of opportunities to meet people who I wouldn't regularly meet. I got to meet Madeleine Albright and greet her and talk with her, and that was a thrill for me. So that was definitely a highlight when she came to the university to speak, and so that was really wonderful for me.
Jennifer Frankel has done a remarkable job as a pioneer, as a student regent, and as a colleague. She has become really one of 10 and has worked just in every respect as a regent of the University of Washington. And I'll be kind of sad to see her go at the end of 1 year, because that's what the law says.
Frankel will be a tough act to follow. We're coming to the end of the awarding of the master's degrees.
Faculty of the university for their respective degrees are listed in the commencement program. Candidates for bachelor's degrees in the College of Arts and Sciences will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean David Hodge.
Candidates from the College of Arts and Sciences, please rise. Mr. President, I have the honor of presenting the candidates for the degrees of Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Fine Arts, Bachelor of Music, and Bachelor of Science, and recommend that all of those who have fulfilled the degree requirements of the College of Arts and Sciences be awarded their degrees. Please be seated.
Thank you, David.
Bachelor candidates from the College of Engineering, Mr. President, will be presented to you by Dean Denise D. Denton.
Candidates from the College of Engineering will please rise. It gives me great pleasure, Mr. President, to present the candidates of the College of Engineering for the degrees of Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Science in Engineering, Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical and Astronautical, Ceramic, Chemical, Civil, Computer, Electrical, Industrial, Mechanical, and Metallurgical Engineering, and Bachelor of Science in Technical Communication. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Engineering be awarded their bachelor's degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
Candidates from the College of Forest Resources will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean David Thorud.
Candidates from the College of Forest Resources will please rise. Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present these candidates for their bachelor's degrees in forest resources and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Forest Resources be awarded their respective bachelor's degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the School of Business Administration will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean William Bradford.
The candidates from the School of Business Administration, please rise. Actually, it is already done. Mr. President, it is with much pleasure that I present these candidates for bachelor's degrees in the School of Business Administration and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Business Administration be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
After 5 years at the head of the University of Washington School of Business Administration, Dean Bradford is about to step down and return to teaching and scholarship. On his watch, the business school reconnected with the local business community, grew its MBA program substantially, raised its endowment by more than 50%, and created a number of exciting new programs. In one of these, the Business and Economic Development Program, Dean Bradford will now hold an endowed professorship with a focus on minority business development. Please join me in recognizing Dean Bradford's outstanding leadership and accomplishments.
Bachelor candidates from the College of Ocean and Fisheries Sciences, Mr. President, will be presented to you by Dean Arthur Noel.
Will the candidates from the College of Ocean and Fisheries Sciences please rise? It gives me great pleasure, Mr. President, to present these candidates for bachelor's degrees in oceanography and in fisheries. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the baccalaureate requirements of the College of Ocean and Fisheries Sciences be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates, please be seated.
Bachelor's candidates from the School of Nursing will be presented, Mr. President, by Dean Nancy Woods.
Will the candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science from the School of Nursing please rise? Mr. President, it is my pleasure and my honor to present these candidates to you for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Nursing and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Nursing be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the School of Dentistry will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Thomas J. Morton.
Will the candidates from the School of Dentistry please rise? Mr. President, it is my honor and pleasure to present a list of candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Dental Hygiene. I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements be awarded the bachelor degree. Candidates be seated. Thank you.
Bachelor candidates from the College of Architecture and Urban Planning will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Jerry V. Finrow.
Will the candidates from the College of Architecture and Urban Planning please rise? Mr. President, I have the honor to present these candidates for bachelor's degrees in architecture, landscape architecture, construction management, and in community and environmental planning, and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the College of Architecture and Urban Planning be awarded their respective bachelor's degrees. Please be seated.
Bachelor candidates from the School of Medicine will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Daniel Hunt.
Will the candidates from the School of Medicine please stand? Thank you. Mr. President, it's a pleasure to present to you the bachelor candidates in the specialized degrees of physical therapy, occupational therapy, medical technology, prosthetics, and orthotics. Many of these candidates are being awarded in absentia, as many have taken positions around the country. The candidates may be seated.
Candidates from the School of Social Work will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Associate Dean Margaret Spearman.
The candidates from the School of Social Work will please rise.
Mr. President, it is my pleasure and honor to present these candidates for their bachelor degrees in social welfare and recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Social Work be awarded their respective bachelor degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
Candidates from the School of Public Health and Community Medicine will be presented to you, Mr. President, by Dean Patricia Wall.
Will the candidates from the School of Public Health and Community Medicine please rise? Mr. President, it is with great pleasure that I present these candidates for bachelor's degrees in the School of Public Health and Community Medicine, and I recommend that all who have fulfilled the requirements of the School of Public Health and Community Medicine be awarded their respective degrees. Candidates will please be seated.
All bachelor candidates from all schools and colleges just presented will please rise. Following President McCormick's citation awarding the various bachelor's degrees, all candidates will be seated immediately and under the direction of the faculty marshals will await their turn to come forward one row at a time.
On behalf of the Regents and the faculty of the University of Washington, I am pleased to confer upon each of you your bachelor's degree. Congratulations. Your university is very proud of you. May I ask you now to be seated and await your turn to come forward.
You're watching the 124th Commencement from the University of Washington in Seattle on UWTV. And here they are, the undergraduates of the class of 1999. I'm Pam Stewart.
And I'm Jim Stutzman. To quote Bev Gessel, coordinator of this event, commencement is the most important function the university does each year. The students are ready to leave, and we want to send them off with a great hurrah, and that hurrah is now underway.
And we'll have a chance to see how creative this year's graduates are in the costume design department. We've already seen some of that earlier today. In years past, we've had flowers, flags, even tiny antennae dangling from the students' mortarboards. I remember one time someone had a house on top of their head. I think it was probably a construction major or
Lots
something.
of hard hats used to be part of it.
That's right.
It is encouraging to know that many business leaders in the state are increasingly recruiting these graduates. The numbers of employers interviewing on campus is up again this year. Many opportunities are in the software technology industries, as you might well expect. Business-related jobs are also in the mix. And students with liberal arts backgrounds are again in demand.
Many students looking for work are now taking advantage of the technology of this information age. The internet is becoming the job hunting tool of choice for many students. Feedback from them suggests that the World Wide Web is connecting a lot of these new graduates with new and challenging work in many places.
Increasing numbers of these undergraduates have had some first-hand experience in doing research. Now, that's a relatively new tack at the university, and it's one which both students and employers like a lot.
Earlier in this broadcast, you saw some faculty members and lecturers being honored for their distinguished work in their classrooms. And about a week ago, Jim had a chance to meet 4 of this year's award winners and to talk about teachers teaching and learning. We have for you a portion of that conversation.
Is teaching an intuitive skill, or is it learned? Kevin?
Well, I think I've learned a lot about teaching. I tell my students sometimes that I was somebody as an undergraduate who never spoke in class. My students are amazed by that I can stand up and be apparently an extrovert, when in fact I think of myself as fairly introverted. I think there are a lot of things about getting up and speaking in front of people that, something that I've learned and I've adapted to. I've also learned by watching people I think are good teachers and talking with people about teaching.
Do you learn in the classroom? Do you learn from your students?
Well, I think I learn from my students. I mean, I teach business. I have a lot of students who have business experience in areas that I don't have. I have students who have grown up in different parts of the world and have experiences that I learn from their experiences, and as do the other students learn from those experiences.
Is that similar for all of you? Is there a chemistry that goes on in a good class where your students are picking up information from you, practical, useful information, and learning how to apply it, and the same thing happening to you?
I think there's two aspects of teaching that make it a wonderful learning experience. One is that when you're really forced to explain something to someone else, you find that you have to master it better yourself. But then I think you're also talking about the second piece, which is the kind of synergism that takes place. My first teaching experiences were in these huge classrooms where basically I lectured. And I did learn a lot from that. And I like to think my students learned from that. But what I do now that's really different is much more this collaboration that you talked about, what Tony was talking about in terms of doing exercises together, this much more synergistic kind of thing. And in some ways, it's a lot scarier because I don't know what we're going to come out with. If I lecture in front of 700 students, I really run the class. I know what I'm going to teach, and I can go in and I can do it. Whereas when you come in and you build it such that they're learning exercises and you're doing things together, something may happen that's really totally new. And that's scary at first,
It's exciting,
and the first
though.
times, but it's also exciting.
Does that happen to all of you?
Sure. Yeah. One of the things I find is very interesting, I often teach two sections of the same class in a day. And the first time something wonderful happened like that, and I figure, boy, now I've got this session wired, and then it doesn't happen in the second section. It goes in a different direction. Well, the first section, you really would have had to be there. It was great what we came to, and students look at me, and because it's a process. What you get to is a process, and you don't appreciate it if you haven't been through the process.
One of the things I want to jump back in terms of the question you had earlier about is teaching something you learn or is it something intuitive? Kevin was right that a lot of it you pick up, you learn, and you're constantly learning how to do things differently and better. But there's also a very important intuitive aspect of it, I think, as well. And it's very important in larger lecture courses. And that intuitive aspect is remembering yourself as a student and putting yourself there. So that's just something that you have to always have, that, okay, I'm a student and I project myself into the class there, and I'm teaching myself at the same time I'm teaching lots of students. And it's a feeling that you can't really learn that. It's something that has to be there, and it's something that it's very difficult for me to understand, but oftentimes in classes where I get 200 or 300 people, it is difficult to break down into groups. And so basically I have to anticipate the questions that students will be asking and ask them for them. And that is where a lot of the intuitive aspects of teaching come, I think.
When you look back on your years as students, do you reflect on people who were distinguished teachers? Are you distinguished teachers by virtue of having had one yourself?
Well, I think it certainly helps. I think that most people, I don't know, maybe not most people, but certainly most people who end up in teaching, there's something about the experience that makes them different and want to do it themselves. I was doing this curriculum transformation project this quarter, and somebody's project, she's someone in the School of Education, focused just on that, and her thesis was that people go into teaching either one, because someone changed their life and they want to do the same thing for someone else, or two, that they experience such horrible teaching that they want to make sure that nobody ever does that again. I'd put myself more in the former than in the latter.
Well, I hope you all do.
I think that's true. I think you do tend to remember the extremes. And when you originally asked that question, I had to smirk because I know some professors I had in the past that were really bad, but also ones that were really great. And those are the two things that stand in my mind. And you sit there and you think to yourself, okay, what did I like about the great one? What didn't I like about the bad one? And make sure that I adjust accordingly.
When there's talk about the give and take between students and teachers, oftentimes, and just in the last few years at least, communications technology is mentioned. How has this changed what you do and how you do it? Can this kind of sophisticated technology ever replace the give and take between you and your students? Dave?
Not for me. I think that, well, first of all, let me preface it by saying I'm not anti-technology. I use technology in my research a lot. But I really think that education is about learning how to think and analyze problems and discuss how to solve those problems. And I think the best context in which to do that is the human context. Professor-student interaction, student-student interaction. And I just don't see it as a way to educate people on the web, to webify everything, as everybody wants to do these days. I've used that technology in my classes as a peripheral kind of archival tool. Here's all the information related to the course. Here are all the old exams. Here are all the lecture slides, so forth and so on. So it's a level playing field, and everybody's got access to that. But I haven't really ever. I don't see myself trying to teach the students the mathematics on the web.
You cannot replace the human contact element in teaching. And I'm adamant about that. I use a lot of technology in my teaching. I use computerized animations, the web, everything. But being in the classroom with the student at the same time is critical. And in part, it also goes back to that intuitive part of teaching, is that the way I know a student is learning something is by looking into their eyes and seeing them learn something. I don't know what it is, but I can tell and look at a student that when they got something, their eyes sparkle or something.
Light bulb.
The light bulb, the proverbial light bulb comes on, and that cannot be done if you don't have that human contact.
There's a kind of chemistry. I've at least that is the term that I think all of us have heard. Agreed?
Right. Yeah, I think technology can extend that chemistry. I mean, the classroom becomes something broader. Students can ask each other questions on the net at night as they're doing their homework, as part of, kind of chat groups. That's really exciting. There's things like when you put your lecture notes on the web, students can come into the classroom, and instead of taking notes and trying to recopy the pictures of your slides, they can really be listening, in a much more active way. I mean, I think technology is wonderful, but I think when you start talking about it as a replacement rather than an enhancement is when all of us would probably balk.
This question may be too broad to really get into, given the time constraints we have, but given the unique position that you people are in to discuss the state of education, our schools, are they giving students the skills they need to succeed personally and academically? If you could change something about the way we as a society teach our students, would you make changes? If so, what? Any thoughts?
Well, I'll start out. One of the things I do at Bothell is serve on our admissions committee for the business program, and I observe a lot of students coming in who, just by my standards, are very deficient in terms of their writing. And it appears that writing is something which is just being waved off a little bit, so to speak, at lots of different levels of education. I talk to people in community colleges and say, well, that's how we get them from high school. And another thing that I observe is in general a disappointing lack of carryover of lots of things, material and basic mathematics, basic understanding of science or humanities. We only teach upper division courses, so students don't bring nearly as much from those lower division prerequisites to our courses as we would like.
Dave, I know you have talked about communication in a mathematics class. Is that something similar to what Kevin was talking about?
I've noticed an incredible weakness in writing and communication skills of incoming. I teach a lot of freshman courses, and so I'm getting these students right out of high school. The ability to write a complete English sentence or express a coherent thought is severely lacking among these students. It's shocking, actually, that they don't seem to have this ability when they come out of the high school system.
So is it bad? Is it basic education where we're?
I think certainly one of the goals of the K through 12 system should be the ability to communicate with the English language, written and spoken. And it seems lacking to me.
Anna Marie?
Well, I'm of two different things are going on in my head. One is that I think it's almost become fashionable to slam the public school systems in particular. I think they're under tremendous pressure. And I agree with everything that's been said. I think that in general, students come in, and where I see the weaknesses are in terms of writing, in terms of the critical thinking. I think that a lot of the model of education is still the passive recipient. And so they come and they expect for you to sit there and put knowledge in their heads, and often it takes a lot of work to get them to participate actively because it's not what they're used to. Having said that, I think that schools are under an enormous amount of pressure, and that, we really are at a point where, as a society, we really need to be making decisions about how much do we value education and what kind of priority we're going to give it. And I think at this point, we talk about it a lot, but when it comes to dollars and cents, education is under-resourced from K all the way through college in terms of public investment. And so, in essence, we get what we're paying for.
A common theme I think that we've all heard is that if we don't pay for this in front, we have to pay for it after the fact, and the costs go up considerably. True?
Yes, it's important to think of the whole educational process as public investment in human capital, intellectual skills, the ability to think critically, reason, solve problems, which is going to impact our society both politically and economically into the future. And it all starts basically at year one in school, in kindergarten. And so it's important to not only focus on funding of higher education, but also K-12, and see that as an entire process rather than as separate entities.
There is a concerted effort now within the university community to focus on K-12. Do you see that as a positive thing? I mean, how else could it be?
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, to kind of get back to your last question, we hear a lot from business folks, from industry, et cetera, that, that they're getting workers that they don't feel really are capable of doing the kinds of things they'd like to have them be able to do. And, I think all of this works together. Students aren't coming to us with quite the skill package, or many of them are coming to us without the kind of skill package that really allows us to do our best work right away. And so we end up doing some remediation of some sort or other. And, that happens all the way down the line. And I think that it is. I mean, anything that you're not doing right early on just kind of ends up compounding out. And I would say you actually are starting before K. I mean, what's happening at home and what's happening, most kids are attending child care and some kind of preschool. And it starts from then.
Well, whatever you're doing, you're doing something right. Thank you. Anna Marie Kause, Professor of Psychology and Chair of American Ethnic Studies. Dave Collingwood, Professor of Mathematics. Tony Gill, Assistant Professor of Political Science, and Kevin Laverty, Assistant Professor of Business Administration, UW-Bothell. Distinguished teachers, all, congratulations. It's been a joy to listen to you talk about a subject that's near and dear to all of us. And thank you for taking the time to rearrange your incredible schedules to be with us here today. Thanks again.
Thank you.
3 other recipients of this award: Rasat Kasaba, Associate Professor in the Jackson School of International Studies; Linda McElvey, Senior Lecturer in Business Administration at UW-Tacoma; and June Morita, a Senior Lecturer in Management Science and Statistics, were not able to rearrange their schedules to join in this discussion. But all these teachers will be joining a newly formed University Teaching Academy, whose membership includes about 100 faculty members who have been singled out as distinguished teachers.
The teachers are the very students you see before us now. The membership of this academy, incidentally, will be mentoring new faculty people people who've not had the benefit of this collaborative classroom experience. That should be another payoff for all concerned. One of the most astonishing parts of this technological revolution concerns human biology. Last month, one of the nation's largest biotechnology conferences was held in Seattle. National and local media covered the conference in some detail, and a lot of the information generated there had direct ties to the University of Washington.
You're watching, continuing to watch, the awarding of undergraduate degrees to the class of 1999. This is the largest graduating class in the history of the University of Washington, and we are proud to present this to you as a public service by UWTV.
And what, might you ask, have these undergraduates done for fun for the past 4 years? Well, the usual assortment of college-age kid activities, too numerous to mention. But one option they had while they were here was to make use of the university's wide variety of recreational sports programs and facilities. And here's a look at some of them.
Facility. I mean, everything's here that you need to work out, and you see a lot of people that you know, so it's a fun environment, especially when it's bad weather. I come in here 5 times a week, you know, at the most, but I started coming here, I'm a freshman, so fall this year, and just been coming ever since.
Even during nice weather, UW freshman Annie Campbell likes to work out at the Intramural Activities Building. She and thousands of fellow UW students, faculty, and staff take advantage of this facility, operated by the university's Department of Recreational Sports Programs.
Well, the IMA is the gym for the University of Washington. So we have everything from cardio to weight training to volleyball to racquetball, swimming. But we also have a program we put out every quarter. And you can take anything. You can take aerobics classes. You can take self-defense, taekwondo, karate, racquetball. It all depends on what students are really into. I'd say pretty much anyone who's ever gone to school here has at least shown up in the IMA once or twice.
But the Intramural Activities Building is not where the rec sports program ends. The department manages other facilities, such as the golf driving range, tennis courts, and several multi-purpose sports fields. Another facility is the Waterfront Activities Center at the shore of Lake Washington. Here, students, faculty, and staff enjoy kayaking, canoeing, and rowing. Boat and canoe rentals are also available to the general public. Over time, recreational sports trends change, and the rec sports program is changing to meet those different needs. The IMA building is over 30 years old now. The IMA Expansion Committee is planning some major facility upgrades to keep up with the ever-increasing demand for sports and recreation services.
The IMA expansion really is motivated for 3 or 4 reasons. One, the original facility was only constructed for 27,000 students. We now have 34 to 35,000 students. We experience crowded times during many operation hours in the facility, particularly in the early afternoons through the early evening hours. Number 3, there's been a significant change in trends of participation in various recreation sports. And of course, the most significant trend is the use of cardio machines, weight machines, and free weights. And the IMA building, constructed in 1968, certainly wasn't designed to meet that need, and that trend, which has developed over the past 8-10 years.
As sports and fitness trends continue to change, so will the Department of Rec Sports programs. What is unlikely to change is the department's commitment to meeting the diverse needs of the University of Washington community well into the next century and well into the next millennium.
It's a great spot, the IMA. When you look out over Husky Stadium and the scenic countryside beyond, you see what a rich mix of geology and topography we share. In the last few years, university scientists begin to identify some of the geologic hazards mixed up in this mix.
They have learned, for instance, that we have a history of some very big earth-shaking events, earthquakes of potentially disastrous proportions. They and other scientists have mapped geologic faults that run through huge sections of western Washington. downtown Seattle among them. I'm not sure I want to know about that.
Not terribly encouraging. If you were around when Mount St. Helens erupted, you know how powerful these forces can be. University scientists continue to monitor that mountain, and they are even more concerned about Mount Rainier. The geologic record shows that Rainier has had a major eruption just about every 10,000 years, and the last blast there occurred about 10,000 years ago.
Well, that has prompted the university to install about a dozen seismograph stations around Rainier. It's thought that these monitors will help detect precursors to an eruption and give those living in or around the mountain time to get out of harm's way in the event of any major seismic activity there.
Forewarned is forearmed.
You bet.
The history of universities is fascinating. The term comes from Latin, universalis, translated of the universe, present or occurring everywhere or in all things. All the great universities, those of antiquity and those of today, had one thing in common: great libraries. On this day that we honor these students who have spent countless hours in those libraries, we thought you might enjoy a short tour of ours, or at least some of them. One of the people who has spent more time there than these students is Jill McKinstry. She heads the Odegaard Undergraduate Library.
Welcome to the University of Washington Libraries. Hi, I'm Jill McKinstry, head of the Odegaard Undergraduate Library. With close to 6 million volumes and hundreds of online databases, the University Libraries is one of the finest research collections in North America. But as you know, that's only part of the picture. Suzzallo is the primary research library for the humanities and social sciences. The microform collection at the University of Washington is the 4th largest in North America. There are as many items in this room alone as there are bound volumes in all the libraries, close to 6 million.
This is the Seattle Times. Horoscope section.
The Suzzallo Reading Room is a quiet retreat from cell phones and laptops. It is an inspiring place to study and to rest. The Allen Library Edition, completed in 1990, was named in honor of Kenneth S. Allen, Associate Director of University Libraries from 1960 to 1982.
I love the collection. We've got great stuff. I'm a 19th century Americanist, and we've got everything here.
East Asia Library has the largest collection of Chinese, Japanese, and Korean materials west of Ann Arbor and north of Berkeley. It's a wonderful place for undergraduates to start reading books and periodicals in those difficult languages.
Minchi, what does this mean?
This means whenever you open a book, you benefit from the reading of it.
So I guess that's the first step. You have to open the book.
That's the first step. You open the book and read it carefully.
For the language of music, you can find wide-ranging materials at the Music Library, including a rare treatise, Resurgio Universalis, printed in 1650, Baroque cantata manuscripts, modern compositions, and even audio recordings and instructional software.
In many music classes, we have to do our assignment, listening assignment, and this webpage has course reserve for my music history of jazz on the internet. You can access the assignment in any of the computers on campus as well as in the dorms or even at home if you have speakers connected to your computer.
This beautiful skylight creates a light and airy feeling at the new Foster Business Library, the below-garden hub of business information and research.
In terms of using the library resources for business research, the librarians here at the Foster Library really know what they're doing.
Medicine, dentistry, nursing, pharmacy, public health, social work, all of these disciplines are supported by the Health Sciences Libraries. More than 200 public workstations access electronic resources and web-based information via health links. Want to know more about the Marine Mammal Act, aquaculture, or hydrothermal vents? The best place to go is the Fisheries Oceanography Library, or search their comprehensive subject guides for resources online.
So yeah, I do use the libraries a lot, and I'm sorry I'm leaving because they're becoming so much better, and everything's becoming web-based now, and
You're not going to have to rely on the actual physical books as much as we once did, and everything is so much easier to find. It's so much faster and takes less time, which is really important for a student.
Home for many undergraduates is the Odegaard Undergraduate Library, one of the busiest libraries on campus and the only 24-hour library facility. UWIRD Commons on the second floor of the library is the largest drop-in computing center on campus with 240 computers. One of the benefits of placing the lab within the libraries is the physical proximity of information specialists, librarians, who are skilled in helping students find what they need online or in print. And so to you, 1999 graduates, the University Libraries wishes you the warmest congratulations and invites you to continue to use the libraries as you pursue your lifelong interests in research.
A wonderful piece on university libraries. Shades of MTV, if you ask me. You're watching the 124th Commencement from the University of Washington on UWTV Channel 27 in Seattle.
Today's undergraduate candidates continuing to walk to the stage where they receive a cover for their diplomas. The real thing comes a little later. We, incidentally, are one, perhaps the only, large university that continues this practice where each student gets a handshake and a congratulations.
And those who observe other large university commencement programs tell us that ours is one of the most colorful affairs in the nation. Hard to beat this setting, Lake Washington to the east and the Cascade Mountains, Puget Sound to the west, and of course the Olympics.
We would like to take a couple of minutes here to give you another brief, albeit spectacular view of the University of Washington. When the weather cooperates, some of the views from this campus are really breathtaking. This is one example. In the foreground is the statue of George Washington, here since 1909. In the background, here for thousands of years, the Olympic Mountains.
You'll note that George's shoulders and cape are remarkably clean. That is not often the case. Many of the birds that nest in and around the campus seem to like this view as well, and they often leave their calling cards, so to speak.
It should be noted that George gets regular cleanings. A lot of campus life takes place here just east of George's lookout over the Olympics. This area got a major facelift in the early 1970s. Beneath the bricks is an underground parking garage.
The original plans called for restoring the lawn that used to be here, but UW engineering faculty members advised against that plan. Their data showed that a rain-soaked lawn would probably collapse the roof of the garage. So their advice was followed, and this area, completed in 1972, has since been known as Red Square. And Red Square also contains the broken obelisk, one of the few sculptures by painter Barnett Newman.
The Physics and Astronomy building is one of the newer fixtures around here, designed by Cesar Pele. It demonstrates some basic principles of physics, appropriately enough. The sculpture is titled Everything That Rises. It is the work of Martin Poirier and dominates the building's plaza.
And the Foucault pendulum is another fascinating element of this place. It reflects the rotation of the Earth around the sun, and it moves around this circle every 24 or so hours.
This is probably Seattle's most famous sundial. Designed by astronomy professor Woodruff Sullivan, if you look closely, you'll see it registers both Pacific Standard and Pacific Daylight Savings Time.
From the new to the old, the first campus building, and one of great charm, Denny Hall. It contains the Varsity Bell that was brought around the Horn of South America in the winter of 1861-62.
Just to the west is the equally old observatory. It was also built in 1895 with leftover material from Denny. To this day, the glass dome rotates on ball bearings. The balls in this case are cannonballs left over from the Civil War.
No kidding. And now we come back to the setting for today's graduation ceremonies. This is a familiar sight to anyone who's ever watched Husky football. And when network television sports commentators get a view of this stadium, they invariably comment on the natural beauty that surrounds this place, as well they should. And if you're going to be visiting the Seattle area, or for that matter, if you live here, or you expect some out-of-towners to be visiting you, feel free to spend some time visiting us. There's lots to see. In the background, you hear the familiar football horn, the touchdown horn, the conclusion of the awarding of the undergraduate degrees at the 124th Commencement at the University of Washington.
After the singing of the alma mater, the audience and members of the graduating class are requested to remain standing in their places until the recessional of the faculty is concluded. The graduating class is then free to join family and friends. The audience will please now rise for the singing of the alma mater. The words are printed on the inside of the back cover of the commencement program.
To her we sing, who keeps our word, all her sons from sea to sea. Our alma mater, Washington, a health we give to thee. Child of the mighty western land, you're a mother of a mighty race. Silent and gentle vigil holds in strength and purity and grace. All hail, O Washington, thy sons and daughters sing glad acclaim. Through years of youth and loyalty and steely age we sing thy fame. In honor thy towers stand, thy battlements shine in dawning light, and glow again in sunset rays. All hail, O Washington!
The 124th commencement exercises of the University of Washington are now closed.
Presidential party is heading for the exit. At this time, you probably recognize the people involved. Ron Moore, the commencement marshal. He's followed by President Richard McCormick, commencement speaker Julian Bond, members of the Board of Regents, and the faculty and the guests who have contributed to this university and this particular ceremony for so often and so generously. I'm Jim Stutzman. To them and to you, our thanks for joining us for this, the 124th commencement from the University of Washington.
And I'm Pam Stewart. That brings to a close our broadcast of this year's graduation event, the largest in the UW's history. Again, a reminder that videotapes of this program are available through the University Bookstore. And this program will also air all next week, Monday through Friday, on these same stations at 2:30 in the afternoon. Thanks again for watching. We've enjoyed bringing you this telecast.
Thank you.